Okay, so let's get rocking and get back into some Python stuff. So we decided we have a representation of our map in JSON, so we want to mess with that a little bit. Today I'm going to write some more of it. It's kind of a shame that I can't copy and paste across between these two. But what I might be able to do, let me just do this real quick. Well, we'll just rewrite it. Take more time to do the other thing than it'll take just to rewrite it. Okay, so over here for our JSON file, and so here's our the map JSON. We want to turn this guy into a map of our world. I only have 2 rooms in it right now, but we want to convert it. And we did talk about this last time. We ultimately want it to look something like this, where we have a top level map object, and I want to explore that today actually through code. And inside there we have a collection of room objects. And inside of room objects, we have a collection of exit objects. Okay, so in our map JSON, I'll just get rid of this stuff. We're going to have our top level. And I'll write it so it's kind of like this. We'll have our map that has a value. The value of map is going to be a collection of rooms. All right, so map will be a collection of rooms. The first room, for instance, and I'll steal from this guy, is our cave entrance. So its title is cave entrance. So this is an object, and I'm going to have another object. So this is my room. This is room 1. This is room 2. All right. So inside here, this guy is going to have a title of the cave entrance. It's going to have a description, the cave entrance. Yeah, so if I want to kick this down a line, I can, but I'll leave it up here for right now. We'll see how it goes. Description is cave entrance. The ID is R1. So we'll call this guy room ID is R1. And then he's going to have a collection of exits. So exits, the value for exits will be a collection. And we'll come back to that here in a second. So I'm going to actually steal this guy here, and we'll update it for my second object. All right, my second object is a dark room, is its title. And I'm guessing my description is every bit as intriguing. A dark room. Room ID for this guy will be R2. And then he's going to have a collection of exits. Okay. Now, a collection is well, it can be a collection of anything that is a JSON value. In this case, we're going to have exit values. And we decided that an exit would be a direction and a destination room ID. So for this first room, we'll have a single thing in our collection. We'll have direction, north, room ID, R2. All right, so room 1 has in its collection of exits a single JSON object that is an exit leading to the north to room 2. Similarly, my collection of exits for room 2 is also only one exit in my current example. This will be leading to the south to room 1. All right. Now, if I want, I can explode this stuff out a little bit more if it reads a little bit better for you. Something like that. Similarly, I can do the same thing over here. As white space is ignored. So we're just doing this for human eyes only. Okay, so our top level JSON object is a single name value pair. The name is map and the value is all of this stuff. Okay, so that value type is a collection and a JSON array. So this JSON array is a collection of stuff. It has two things in it. Here's thing 1, which is a JSON object. Here's thing 2, which is a JSON object. This JSON object is a collection of name value pairs that has this name value pair, this name value pair, this name value pair, and this name value pair, where the value of exits is actually another collection, which holds a collection of JSON objects. Okay, so that'll be our map JSON. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and test it inside of here. I'm going to read in a file called the map JSON. Okay. And let me, we could actually do this. We can say JSON load. And I can tell it the name of the file I want to load. I'm lost. Where's my... Did I already delete the string I just created? That's fine. Okay. So I'm going to call this guy my map dictionary. And he's going to be equal to JSON.load the map map.json. I'll go ahead and print my map dictionary. String object has no That's how I work with it, right? Here, I'll just load it into a string here real quick. Open the map.json. Okay. And that should get me if I do a read, that'll read in the entire thing. S. There's the contents of my file. So then I'll say the map dictionary is equal to json.load_s. All right. I forgot the syntax for directly reading in from the JSON library of files, so I just used our normal file IO open, read it in as a string into string S, and then I used JSON load string to take S and turn it into a dictionary. And then I just printed out that dictionary. So notice here that we have a dictionary that has a name value pair. So if I were to print out the map dictionary at bucket map, for instance, it's going to show me the value associated with map, which is a list. So here's the value associated with map. It is a list of stuff. All right. So if I were to say list of rooms is equal to the map at that bucket, and then I would say for a room in list of rooms, print a room, we see that my list of rooms down here is a list containing JSON objects. There's object 1, there's object 2, that guy is a dictionary. So what should print out here is 2 dictionaries, a dictionary for the first room and a dictionary for the second room. There's my dictionary for the first room. There's my dictionary for the second room. Now, each of these rooms are dictionaries. So each of these rooms have name value pairs. So I can say a room at bucket title is, I can print that. And then I can print a room at bucket description. And I can say print a room at bucket room ID. And I can print a room at bucket exits. This guy will print a string. This guy will print a string. This guy will print a string. But this guy, the value associated with exits is a list. So he's going to print out a list. So notice here I have my title of my first room, description of the first room, ID of the first room, and then I have my list of exits. Title of my second room, description of my second room, room ID of my second room, and then my list of exits. So what I can do now is I can go through for an exit in a room at bucket exits, which is a list. I can print an exit at bucket direction. I can print an exit at bucket room ID. And that should print out my south and my R1, or my north and my R2. So there's my north R2, there's my south R1. So now I've taken a JSON file that looks like this. I've brought it into code, and I've shown you that it comes in as a dictionary that I can now manipulate. All right, so I'm going to take this stuff and we're going to drag it back over to our, is this our homework? Or this is our file we've been working in. All right, so right now my map builder, so this goes to the homework that I kept extending for you, so technically it was due today, but it was originally due last week sometime. So our old version of this took in something that looked like this, the map.txt. So it was this guy. Remember our old proprietary format for our how we kept track of our rooms? Okay, but now we're using the cool kids format of JSON that looks much more programmy, and hopefully you're appreciating the fact, even though I'm sure there's been some struggles with syntax and things like that, that this guy lines up beautifully with Python in that it matches up directly to dictionaries and lists, and then normal Python values like strings. So this guy's a string, this guy's a string, this guy's a string, this guy's a list, this guy's a dictionary. So this matches up very, very nicely to constructs that already exist in Python, so that we can directly work with these guys. All right, so when I go back to, where's my file here? Is this one? Okay, so no longer am I going to tell it to go to the map.txt. I'm now reading in the map.json. Okay, so I'm giving it a different file, but more importantly for us, a different file format. All right, so now what I need to do here is I need to go up to my constructor for Map Builder, and this guy's now going to work a little differently. Okay, no longer am I reading in a text file, splitting it on carriage returns, and then walking through it, keeping track of what line number I'm currently in. Now I can actually operate using the JSON. All right, so let me, I'll just paste my code in here that I had. So I'll go ahead and open up my file name. Then I'll read it into a map dictionary by loading it. Now I already said, here's my list of rooms. And what I want to do is I want to say for each of those rooms, and I'm going to steal something here real quick. I'm going to steal these guys, because I do want my map to still remember a collection of, I don't need to know the current line number anymore, because I'm dealing with it in terms of dictionaries and lists. But I do want to know about my rooms. I do want to know about my my exits, or at least I potentially do. So I want to have these collections for our map to keep track of those things. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll open the file, get my dictionary, get my list of rooms, and then go through all those lists of rooms. And what do I want to do when I'm looking at a room? I want to build a room. Okay, and this room is currently represented as a dictionary. So let's go down to build room. Okay, so here's build room. And we're going to have build room now take in a room dictionary. So it's going to take in a room representation of a dictionary representation of a room. So I can go ahead and gut all the stuff that's in here. All of this junk. Because remember, all of that was like playing this game of skipping from line to line to line and deciding when my exits start and things like that. Well, now because I'm using a dictionary, I can significantly more easily build my objects. All right, so I'm going to say title is equal to a room dictionary at bucket title. Description is equal to a room dictionary at bucket description. What was it? Room ID is equal to a room dictionary at bucket room ID. And now I have my list of exits. So I'm going to say for an exit in a room dictionary at bucket exits. Remember, that guy is going to be a list of JSON objects. I want to go ahead and I want to call build exit. Now, I'm going to scroll back up here before we finish building this, and we're going to look at rooms. Notice that a room has a title, a description, a room ID, and then it has a list of exits and it has a list of inhabitants. So we actually add an exit to a particular room. Right now we have add exit takes in an exit, and it just adds it to our list of exits for this room. What's an exit? An exit is a direction and a room destination ID. I have a lot of commentary in here just to say what we're currently building and that kind of stuff. So it is those exits that we are going to be adding to a room. Where's my map builder? All right, so I'm back up here in the constructor for my map builder. So as I go through each room in my list of rooms, I want to say self.build room, passing it the room we are currently building, which is my dictionary called a room. And I'll go ahead and I can gut the rest of this stuff. Okay, so we're updating the old implementation. I no longer need collection of exits because I'm not temporarily holding them for later on. Now I just need my collection of rooms that make up this map because rooms hold our collection of exits. Open the file, parse the JSON out of it using my JSON load_s variable or function, get my list of rooms, go through each of my rooms, and what do I do for a room? I build a room. So now we're back down to build room. Build room goes ahead and extracts the title, the description, and the room ID from that room. And then the next thing in there is the exits. So I go through all of my exits. And what do I do with an exit? I build an exit. So for each of these exits, I need to go ahead and get the information about that exit. So direction will be equal to an exit at bucket direction. And then destination room ID will be equal to an exit at bucket room ID. Notice I purposely named this guy different than this guy because they actually hold two different room IDs. This room ID is the room ID of the current room we're building. This room ID is the room ID that this exit leads to. So if I used room ID down here, I would have overwritten my value I read in here. So we don't want to do that. So I want separate variables. All right. So this gives us a single exit. Now what I need to do here, after I have my core information for a room, I want to go ahead and build one of those guys. A room takes in a title, a description, and a room ID. And I currently have a title, a description, and a room ID. So we'll go ahead and build the room is going to be equal to a room, passing it the title, the description, and the room ID. So now I have an actual room object. So here we can even call this guy the room object. So I've built a room object that currently has a title, a description, and a room ID, but it does not have any exits added to it yet. But that's okay, because rooms have the ability for us to add an exit to them. All right, and if we want to be a little bit clearer with our variable names here, I'm going to call this guy an exit object. That's what this guy is expecting, an exit object. So I will pass in an exit object, and I'll add that exit object to this particular room's list of exits. Go back down here to our map builder. All right, I'm inside of build room. Build room reads in the 3 pieces of information for a room, builds our actual room object, then goes through all of the exits in that room, gets the 2 pieces of information, builds an exit object out of this. So an exit takes in a direction and it takes in a destination room ID. Those are the pieces of information required by the constructor for exit. So now I have an exit object. Remember, we just added to the room object. The room object dot add exit takes in an exit object, and we'll add that particular exit to that room. Build a room, go through all the exits, adding each one to that room. So all along here, I'm extracting the information stored in my JSON file from the dictionary or the lists. So I no longer need this function here called build exit, because now I do that inside of build room. The reason we needed build exit before with all this counting stuff is, remember, we had these little markers that reminded us where we were, exit begin, exit end. So we had to keep building exits until we ran into the exit end portion of that guy. All right, so I no longer need this build exit function because I know exactly how many exits I have. I have the number of exits that are in my exits list that's associated with the exit value in the dictionary for my room. Similarly, remember we had our name value pairs separated by colons before. So we had this like special function called get value that allowed us to extract that. We don't need that anymore. Here's my build room. We no longer need the number of exits because now exits directly belong to a room. We do want to be able to look up a room given the room ID. returning the number of rooms could be handy, that's fine. Adding a monster to the room hasn't changed at all. We aren't storing monsters and things like that inside of our JSON yet. Adding a player, same thing, and here's my constructor. So notice how much cleaner my constructor is. I know it's still a lot of lines of code, but I'm reading in JSON. At this point, I have after 2 lines of, well, actually 1 line of code. After 1 line of code, I've turned this file into a plain Jane, somewhat complex Python dictionary. That's what I have right there, is a Python dictionary. We're no longer thinking about file IO or anything. This is a dictionary. And I can just do old school Python stuff like we've been doing for a while now to that dictionary. Granted, that dictionary is a little bit scarier looking because it's filled up with lists and other dictionaries. So we have dictionaries inside of dictionaries, but as long as we kind of take it step by step and don't get too blown away by what's a dictionary inside of a dictionary inside of a dictionary with a list of dictionaries and all those things, we can keep ourselves relatively sane, okay? Keep in mind our top level dictionary actually has a single name value pair. That is, the name is map and the value, name is map, and the value is my list of rooms. That's what this guy is. So I have my list of rooms is the value associated with my map. Now I'm going to go through every one of those rooms, where a room here is a room dictionary. So I'll just update the name to be descriptive for what it actually is. So for each room dictionary in my list of rooms, I'm going to call build room, passing it that room dictionary. So this guy takes in a room dictionary, which I use throughout here to extract the pieces of information about my room, build an actual Python room object. Then I extract the exit from my a room dictionary exits. This is a list of exit JSON objects. So in actuality, this is an exit dictionary. So what does that guy look like? That's what my exit looks like. Each individual exit in my list of exits associated with my exits value. This is a list of exits. I happen to only have 1 exit in here, but I could have 500 exits in there if I wanted to. But each one of these exits is in a list, and he himself is a dictionary with 2 name value pairs. So we'll call this guy an exit dictionary. So direction will be the direction key from my exit dictionary. Room ID, destination room ID, will be the room ID associated with my exit dictionary. Then I'll go ahead and build my exit object to have an object representation of my dictionary given these 2 inputs. Takes a direction and a destination room ID. So now I have an exit object. What do I do with exit objects? I add them to the room in which they belong. So I take the current room object, I add an exit, the exit object that I just finished building. So when all is said and done, when I get to this line right here, I now have a room that is filled up with its title, its description, its room ID, and all the exits that belong in that room. Okay? So down here in main, I call my map builder, I pass it the name of my JSON file, and he does all the magic we just did. We just wrote that code, and hopefully you notice that we simplified it quite a bit rather than having to keep track of line numbers and splitting things on values and keeping track of carriage returns and things like that. So I get my map, I display my map. Let me just take everything else out of there for right now. So I just built my map. I tell my map to display itself. What does displaying a map mean? It means go through all the rooms in there and tell each room to display itself. What does displaying a room mean? Go up to room. Displaying a room will show its title. It'll show its description. It's going to go through and build up a list of inhabitants. We haven't put any inhabitants in there yet. Then it'll go through and build up its string for its exits. And that should show us what our room looks like. JSON is not defined. I have not imported JSON in here yet. We had it in our test file, but not in our original file. So there we go. So now, I build my map. I tell my map to display itself. One thing we did not do here is after we built our room, so we had our room object, we forgot to actually add our room to our collection of rooms. So our collection of rooms remains empty. So at the end of build room, I need to remember to say self.collection of rooms dot append the room object. And now notice I have my rooms. So then down here in main, I should be able to put the rest of my code back in. I create my player. I add my player to the map. I create my rat. I add my rat to the map. Specifically, I'm adding the player to the room called R1. And as long as it's true, I say, what do you want to do? So now we're in our room here. I'm in the cave entrance. We see Mr. Gonzalez and the rat here. I can go to the north. So now I'm in the room to the north. I see I'm in a dark room. I only see myself here. Obvious exits are back to the south. I'll go to the south. I see the rat is still here. I'll say kill rat. There's my fight to the death. My rat has died. And now I still see, we probably should update it to say a dead rat or something like that, or maybe the rat disappears after it's gone. But you know, I have my old working game, but now using that JSON representation of our map. Okay, so questions about what we just did there. That was effectively the homework that was due, when was it due? Last Friday? Or even last Wednesday. Actually, it was due last Wednesday, and then I told you about the JSON for Friday and said you had the rest of the time to bring it up to date. So this should be the working version of our map builder for our JSON file. So questions on that? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and give you this code, and then I want to start talking about something.
So JSON essentially works the same in whatever language you're using it for?
Yes, because JSON has nothing to do with the programming language. JSON is a data representation language. It's a separate language for representing data. So in Python, we have a JSON parser. In Java, we have a JSON parser. In C# we have a JSON parser. So all of those different programming languages have built into them the ability to parse a JSON string.
Okay, right.
And if it doesn't, we could write that as a one-off, and now we have that library that allows us to work with this standard language called JSON. So JSON is to our programs as like English is to us. You know, it's this language if you go and talk to 20 different people, 20 different programs, you can use English with every single one of them in Wisconsin, let's say. And there's a pretty good chance that you'll have successful communication with those. All right, so create new. Where's my code? Map Builder, JSON solution. All right, and then I'll give you my JSON file as well. Because I probably have a simpler JSON file than you have because I only built 2 of my rooms, but if you follow that syntax, you can now build as many rooms as you want. Okay. All right, so now we're going to say that this code, which, you know, make sure you walk through this over the weekend. Like I said, I won't give you homework over the weekend because I know folks are catching up with stuff with their families and things like that. But do take some time to walk through this over the weekend and make sure you understand how it's working and how it is better and cleaner than what we had before. With our proprietary format that we had in here. So now we've moved away from proprietary and we're now dealing with a format that is kind of a standard. All right. But, you know, to Cassidy's question here, you know, what's the job of JSON? This is a protocol or a language that we can use for programs to talk to each other. So this allows us to represent a bunch of data and store it inside of a program. Now, having said that, we can still say that while this wasn't that big of a deal to write, this is a little bit cryptic, and maybe you wouldn't want to create your entire map this way, right? You know, you might say, okay, well, you know, I don't really want to write my game, create my map by hard coding JSON into a file because this is a little tedious for a human. So maybe what we do is we actually create another program that allows us to output JSON. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create another program here. We'll save it. And let's call this guy map let's see, human to JSON map builder, something like that, .py. All right, so this program, its job is going to be to allow us to type in the information for a room and have it spit out the JSON for us. All right, so for instance, I can say something like title is equal to input, and I'm going to go fairly quickly here since we only have a couple minutes, so I haven't built our entire main structure here. We'll pick up where we left off next week. But input, enter a title. Enter a description. Enter a room ID. Then we will build a room. With that title, that description, and that room ID. I'll have to bring my room over here. So I guess for right now, what I'll do is I'll create a room dictionary is going to be equal to title is title, description is description, and room ID is room ID. I'll go ahead and print out my room dictionary. Stop the current program, we'll run this one, enter a title, we'll call it a cave entrance, description, the cave entrance, room ID, we'll call this guy R1, and it gives me the dictionary version of that guy. Well, now what I can do is I can say the JSON version is equal to json.dumps. So that gives me a JSON string from a dictionary. And then we'll print the JSON version here. A cave, whatever. And room ID R2, let's say. And notice here that it has now given me the actual JSON string from that I can then use. So if I wanted to, I can just be a little bit ghetto here. I can just copy this, go into my map.json, and I can actually paste in another room here. Oh, I didn't copy it correctly apparently, but I can just paste in that room in here and put a comma after it. And now I've saved myself that tedium of having to write the, kind of the correctly formatted JSON. I could just have my program over here quiz me on the pieces of information it needed. So the next thing we would say is give me some information about the exits. So it would quiz me on those things. I'd enter all the information in, and it would produce for me the weird JSON string that I could just copy and paste then into my file. So that might be the first step towards a more automated map builder. So we'll pick up from there on Monday. So at the very least, review this code over the weekend and make sure you wrap your mind around how JSON works. And I will see everybody on Monday.
Isn't today Wednesday?
It is Wednesday. Thank you. I'll see you Friday.
Okay.
And I haven't gotten far enough to give you another assignment yet. So
Okay.
sorry about that. Yeah, that's
yeah.
We don't
Yeah,
know
I was,
what it is.
yeah, I was just making sure. So, yep. Have a great day.
I appreciate it.